How to scale. Here I will teach not only how to scale but I will attempt to explain the concept of scale. First, you wanted to scale your drawing to make sure all dimensions are correct. Imagine a chair. Nothing to do with the chair, so we need a table. On the table we need a 3 size paper and a 2 size paper. And we will draw the table and chair CAD file on a 3 size paper. Imagine the tabletop represent the layout tab on CAD that we will assume the real life scale. Inside the paper represent the layout M view of model tab. Now if you scale the model equal or same scale as the layout, or shall we say scale 1:1, the chances are you will see nothing because the A3 size paper is equal size or scale of the drawing. That's what it mean when we say scale 1:1. Now if we pan this drawing to a 1:1 drawing, same as shown, the image of the drawing is equal to the actual size. If we assume one drawing in model is 1 meter and one unit in the layout tab is also 1 meter. Same as if we assume every 1 unit we draw in model is 1 centimeter and the layout 1 unit also 1 centimeter. Same as if we assume every 1 unit we draw in model is 1 millimeter and the layout 1 unit also 1 millimeter. This is the meaning of 1:1, the 1 unit of model equal or same as 1 unit of layout tab. We can only say it was measure in millimeter if we use 1000 unit represent a 1 meter. And we can say it was measure in centimeter if we use 100 unit represent a 1 meter. And we can say it was measure in meter if we use 1 unit represent a 1 meter. Now what if 1 unit of your model represent 1 meter and on the layout tab 1 unit represent 1 millimeter? As you notice on the upper left of the screen, if we dimension the paper it will be in millimeter while the drawing was on the dimension of meter. Here I will show how. Now the square with dimension on the left represent model tab and on the right side represent layout tab. In scale 1:1 we are using the same unit. If we decided to make the layout tab to become millimeter, we will draw the square as 1000 by 1000 because 1 meter is equal to 1000 millimeter. But if we do that we are only creating a bigger square. Therefore to match the scale on layout tab to model tab we call this scale 1000:1. 1 unit represent 1 millimeter on the layout tab. If we decided to draw 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter on a scale 1000:1 we are only creating a smaller square. The command to do this is mview, zoom scale 1000/1xp, enter. Now if we decided to make a square 100 by 100 on layout tab we are creating bigger square compared to the model tab. But if we consider that the drawing of 100 by 100 represent 1 unit is equal to centimeter and the model tab in meters, it shall be equal, same as if we decided again to change layout tab into 1000 by 1000 it will represent 1 unit is equal to millimeter. Again if you change the square into 100 by 100 as 1 unit is equal to 1 centimeter you will write it 100:1. If 1 unit equal to 1 millimeter in layout tab and in model tab was 1 unit is equal to 1 meter you will write it 1000:1. But what if you want to scale the drawing in model tab into 1:50, 1000:50? Yes, the drawing in the M view will zoom out to make a scale 1:50, 50% smaller. The principle in scaling is that 1 meter divided into 50 is equal to 20 millimeter. Now get a scale ruler like this and get a ruler, turn this scale to find 1:50 and confirm if 1 meter is equal to 20 millimeter. Now back to our discussion 1000:50, the command was mview, zoom, scale, 1000/50xp, enter. Now if you want to print it, the layout tab press Ctrl P on your keyboard, you will see scale factor. If your drawing paper was drawn in 1 unit is equal 1 millimeter, use 1:1. Use 1 millimeter equal to 1 unit. But if your drawing paper was drawn in 1 unit is equal to 1 meter, use 1000 millimeter equal to 1 unit. But if your drawing paper was drawn in 1 unit is equal to 1 centimeter, use 10 millimeter equal to 1 unit. Now what if in model tab 1 unit is equal to 1 meter and layout tab 1 unit is equal to 1 millimeter? Or what if in model tab 1 unit is equal to 1 meter and layout tab 1 unit is equal to 1 centimeter? Or what if in model tab 1 unit is equal to 1 millimeter and layout tab 1 unit is equal to 1 centimeter? Here is a table to explain how. Make an Excel file like this. Now on the highlighted shown line 6 column D, 1 was placed because 1 unit of model tab is equal to 1 unit of layout tab. On line 7 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 10 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 cm and in 1 cm, there are 10 mm represent on layout tab. On line 8 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 1000 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 meter and in 1 meter there are 1000 mm represent on layout tab. On line 10 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 0.1 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 mm and in 1 mm there are 0.10 cm represent on layout tab. On line 11 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 1 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 cm and in 1 cm there are 1 cm represent on layout tab. On line 12 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 100 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 meter and in 1 meter there are 100 cm represent on layout tab. On line 14 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 0.001 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 mm and in 1 mm there are 0.001 meter represent on layout tab. On line 15 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 0.01 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 cm and in 1 cm there are 0.01 meter represent on layout tab. On line 16 column D, 1 unit of model tab is equal to 1 unit of layout tab because model tab represent 1 meter and in 1 meter there are 1 meter represent on layout tab. Then moving on to the command cell, use this formula. On line 6 column I, represent column D line 6. On line 7 column I, represent column D line 7. On line 8 column I, represent column D line 8. On line 10 column I cannot represent column D line 10 because the command do not allow decimal point, therefore to round up we will place 10 multiply to column G because 1 unit represent as millimeter is equal to 10 unit if represent as 1 centimeter. On line 11 column I, represent D11. On line 12 column I, represent D12. On line 14 column I cannot represent column D line 14 because the command do not allow decimal point, therefore to round up we will place 1000 multiply to column G because 1 unit represent as millimeter is equal to 1000 unit if represent as 1 meter. On line 15 column I, cannot represent column D line 15 because the command do not allow decimal point, therefore to round up we will place 100 multiply to column G because 1 unit represent as centimeter is equal to 100 unit if represent as 1 meter. On line 16 column I, represent column D line 16. Then cell K16 formula G16 multiply to 1. Then cell K12 formula G12 multiply to 1. Then cell K11 formula G11 multiply to 1. Then cell K8 formula G8 multiply to 1. Then cell K7 formula G7 multiply to 1. Then cell K6 formula G6 multiply to 1. Then let's check if you change column G line 6 if the value of the scale reflect the correct command for your scale. Then let us do an exercise on CAD. If you cannot get it in one watch, then watch it many times until you successfully understand. You can use this information and table in creating your scale in Annotative. Then comment below what was missing, to improve the lecture for the benefit of many. The next lecture will be on how to uniform the text and dimension, or how to use Annotative. Hit the subscribe button and bell for additional content. Thanks for watching.